Wait, you're the judge? Her face turned ghost white. The groom's smile dropped mid-photo. The entire bridal party froze. I adjusted my robe, held the pen, and looked her dead in the eye. You said only successful family was allowed. I guess I finally made the cut. Let me rewind, because you need to understand how deep this betrayal cut, how hard I had to work to get to this moment, and how poetic the justice was, walking into my sister's wedding not as a guest, but as the one person who could legally validate her biggest day. And just 1 year earlier, she blocked me from the family group chat for being a walking embarrassment. My name's Emily. I'm 34, a district court judge now, but that wasn't always the case. I was the late bloomer in the family, the black sheep, the cautionary tale. You see, my sister Rachel and I grew up in a picture-perfect suburban home, or at least that's what it looked like from the outside. Private school, tennis lessons, honor rolls. Our parents were obsessed with appearances, especially our mother. Rachel was always the golden child, top of her class, popular, never a hair out of place. And me? I struggled. Dyslexia, ADHD, and a rebellious streak that didn't sit well with Mrs. Country Club perfection. I barely made it out of high school, went to community college, dropped out, bounced between jobs. Meanwhile, Rachel was on the fast track, Ivy League, internships at law firms, and soon, a 6-figure corporate job. She never let me forget it either. I remember this one Thanksgiving. I'd just been laid off. Rachel leaned across the table and said, "Maybe if you spent less time chasing pipe dreams and more time building a LinkedIn profile, you wouldn't be broke every year." Mom laughed. Dad sipped his wine. I just stared at my mashed potatoes. They always did this. Subtle jabs, backhanded praise. They didn't see me as Daniel, the person, just Daniel, the disappointment. But what they didn't know was that I'd been fighting. Quietly, taking night classes, studying law in secret. Because I wanted to prove to myself that I could make it on my own terms. And when I finally got into law school at 28, not a soul in my family celebrated. Fast forward a few years. I graduate, pass the bar, start working cases, then get appointed as a local magistrate. Nothing flashy, just small claims and civil disputes. Still, I was proud. I felt like I'd climbed out of the pit they'd shoved me in, but the real gut punch came last summer. The wedding announcement. Rachel posted the engagement on Instagram, champagne glasses, a castle backdrop, captioned, "He proposed." Bride to be, she's you only, the best for this queen. Within days, the wedding machine was in full motion. Family chat blowing up, dresses, venues, catering, destination ideas. Except, I wasn't invited. At first, I thought it was a mistake. I messaged Rachel directly. "Hey, haven't seen my invite yet. Just checking. Do you need my address?" She left me unread. Then 2 hours later, I get a message from Mom. "Sweetheart, Rachel feels that her wedding should reflect where she is in life. It's going to be a high-profile affair. She's asked to limit guests to family who align with that image. Please don't make this harder." Align with her image? I felt like I'd been slapped. Apparently, my existence, my entire journey, was a liability to her brand. I wanted to scream, to call her out, but I didn't. Instead, I went silent. That silence, it changed everything. Because in that void, I started leveling up harder than ever. I doubled down on my work, started teaching law part-time, volunteering at youth advocacy centers. I got nominated for a full judgeship and was confirmed within months. The same month, Rachel's wedding was announced to the press as a lavish union of 2 rising stars. And guess who was assigned, completely at random, to officiate their marriage license paperwork? Me. I called the clerk's office, thinking it had to be a mistake. But it wasn't. Out of a rotation of 10 judges, they'd pulled my name. I had a decision to make. I could recuse myself, quietly pass the duty to someone else, stay out of it, avoid drama, be the bigger person. Or I could show up, not for revenge, not for petty satisfaction, but to prove, without saying a word, that I was never the embarrassment. They just never took the time to see me clearly. And so, the plan was set. I requested to meet them in person, day of, to review the paperwork. It's not standard protocol, but it's allowed under state law. I wore my robe, stepped into that gilded wedding hall. People clapped, thinking I was part of the ceremony staff. And then she turned around, saw me, and everything stopped. Wait, you're the judge? Rachel's voice sliced through the music like a dagger. The crowd froze. The string quartet kept playing until someone finally signaled them to stop. My sister's face dropped. Her perfect bridal glow drained in seconds. Her fiancé, Tyler, looked like he was witnessing a live episode of a true crime documentary. I stood there calmly, holding the official folder. Black dress robe on, hair tied back, no makeup, no sparkle, just presence. Per state protocol, I said, I'm the officiating judge assigned to sign and witness your marriage license today. You could hear the tension snap across the room. She shook her head, eyes wide with disbelief. Number, you're not. This has to be a mistake. I opened the folder and tapped the top page. Court assignment came through last week. Your planner submitted the legal filing, and it was randomly assigned to me by rotation. I confirmed it myself. This is official. Tyler stepped forward, trying to play peacemaker. Maybe we can call someone else. Have another judge come in. Babe, don't stress. Rachel spun toward him, full bridezilla mode activated. No, this is supposed to be elegant, not awkward. My photos are in vogue tomorrow. I'm not letting her sign my marriage papers. That word again. Her, not my sister. Not the one who stayed up with me every night after Dad left. Just her. Let me rewind for 1 second. I'm 33 now. I wasn't always a judge. I clawed my way up. From night shifts waiting tables, to law school on scholarships, to a public defender's office that nearly broke me. Rachel? She was always the one with doors held open. I had to break mine down with bleeding knuckles. When she got engaged, it was all over the family group chat, champagne selfies, engagement ring videos with captions like, "Marrying the man of my dreams. So blessed to be living my fairy tale." I sent a congratulations text. She never replied. 2 weeks later, my mom sent me this message. Rachel is keeping the guest list exclusive. She doesn't want anyone there who might draw attention away from the couple. Please respect her wishes. What she meant was, you're not invited. You're not camera-friendly enough for this wedding. So yeah, when fate dropped her marriage license on my desk, you bet I paused. I thought about declining, but then I remembered something. This isn't revenge. This is reclamation of worth, of space, of voice. So here I was, face to face with the sister who ghosted me, now forced to reckon with the sister who would legally sign her wedding into reality. Back to the ceremony. Rachel, I said evenly, if you want to object, I'll step away. That's your right. But let's not pretend I asked to be here. The system brought me to you. She clenched her jaw. The entire bridal party had backed up like they were watching a grenade about to go off. Her voice cracked. You're doing this on purpose. You always ruin things. I kept my tone steady. No, Rachel. I just survived the things you never even had to face. Her eyes darted around the room. She knew she was losing control of the narrative. One of her bridesmaids, Jessica, I think, pulled her aside and whispered something. Rachel stared at the floor. Then, finally, she nodded. Fine, sign it. Let's just get it over with. They signed first. Tyler scribbled his name like a deer caught in headlights. Then came mine. I picked up the pen, wrote with care, and sealed the page. Marriage license officially signed and witnessed. Congratulations, I stepped back. She looked like she wanted to scream, cry, and melt into the marble floor all at once. But instead, she said nothing. So I said something I never planned to. You know, I never wanted to embarrass you. All I ever wanted was for you to see me as worthy. But you chose status over sisterhood. You built an image so polished, there was no room for real people. The air in the hall felt thick. And yet, I raised the signed license slightly. You couldn't do this without me." Then I turned to leave. I was halfway to the exit when I heard her voice. Software, barely above a whisper. 10:10. I stopped cold. My heart skipped. "What?" She looked up. Her mascara was starting to run. 10:10, she said again. "Remember? We made that up when we were little. It meant I've got your back, no matter what." God, I hadn't heard that in over 2 decades. The last time she said it, we were sitting under the dining table during our parents' fight. She was scared. I wrapped my pinky around hers and whispered it. 10:10. Always. I didn't say anything back now. I just nodded. As I stepped out of the hall, the sun hit my face, and for the first time in years I felt taller than the heels I wore. Not because I got revenge, not because I ruined her day, but because I showed up as the real me, and she couldn't ignore it anymore. But it didn't end there. 1 week later, I heard a knock on my door, and standing there wasn't my mom, wasn't Tyler, it was Rachel. No wedding dress, no makeup, just my sister, holding something in her hands that I never expected to see. A week after the wedding, I was home grading paperwork for an upcoming hearing when I heard a knock. It wasn't just any knock. It had that hesitancy, the kind that doesn't ask to come in, just hopes you will. I looked through the peephole. Rachel, no stylist, no glam squad, no designer bag. Just my sister, standing on my doorstep, holding a white photo album in both hands like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I opened the door, slow and cautious. She looked up at me, no pretense, no attitude, just tired. "Can I come in?" she asked softly. I stepped aside. We didn't hug. We hadn't hugged in over a decade. She sat down at the edge of my couch like she didn't quite belong there, and placed the photo album between us. "I know you probably don't want to see me," she started, "but there's something I need you to understand." She opened the album. Page 1. A baby photo of me holding her as a newborn, grinning like I'd just won a prize. Page 2. Us at Halloween. She's dressed as a pumpkin. I'm a witch. Page 3. A note, handwritten in kid-like scrawl. "I love my sister because she makes me feel brave." I blinked. Where the hell had she been hiding this? "I kept all this," she said. "Even when we weren't talking, even when I was being awful. I couldn't throw it away. Because even though I tried to erase you from the present, I couldn't erase the past." I stayed silent. Let her speak. Because for once, she wasn't giving a performance. She was telling the truth. "You showing up that day as the judge, it wrecked me." She looked at me, eyes glassy. "Not because you embarrassed me, but because you reminded me who I used to be, who we used to be. And for the first time, I hated what I'd become." I didn't expect her to cry, but she did. Quiet, small tears that soaked her sleeve. "Mom always pitted us against each other. You know that, right?" I nodded. "She made me feel like your mistakes were mine to avoid." "And mine," I added, "were the ones she never let me forget." We sat there in silence. 10 years of tension, grief, and silent war, now coiled between us like an invisible rope begging to snap. Then she reached into her purse and handed me a card, gold trim, thick stock. "You were right. I built my life around appearances, around approval. But I want to rebuild it around something else now." I opened the card. It was an invitation, not to an event, but to something far more personal. Dinner, just us, next Friday. No makeup, no cameras, just real. She'd signed it. "Love always, 10:10. I couldn't help it. I laughed, a real, slightly tear-choked laugh. "You remembered that?" She shrugged, blushing. "It was our first contract, and you know how I feel about contracts." There's something surreal about seeing your sibling not as a rival, but as a mirror. A mirror of who you both could have been, if the world hadn't gotten in the way. And suddenly, everything clicked. She hadn't shown up at my door to apologize. She came to reconnect, to reconcile, to remember, and maybe, just maybe, so had I. The following Friday, I showed up at her apartment. No cameras, No wine glass clinks, just 2 bowls of pasta and a shared playlist we built in 2007. Halfway through dinner, she pulled out a tiny velvet box. "This was supposed to be my wedding gift from you. I told Mom to return it when I cut you off." She slid it across the table. I opened it, and there it was. The silver locket we buried together when we were 10. She had it dug up from our childhood home's backyard last year, planning to gift it when she felt like she'd earned it back. Inside, she'd placed a new photo, not of her and Tyler, of us, 10 and 12, holding hands in a blanket fort, flashlight between our chins. Below it, a tiny engraving. 1010. Always. That's when I finally cried, not because I was sad, but because after all the distance, all the rejection, all the silence, my sister had finally come back home. But here's what I want you to ask yourself. What if I hadn't said yes to officiating that wedding? What if I'd let anger win? What if I'd walked away from the one door only I could unlock? We chase peace like it's some faraway destination. But sometimes, peace comes wrapped in uncomfortable moments, in awkward conversations, in showing up, even when it's not pretty. It's been 7 months since that wedding. Rachel and I aren't perfect. We still mess up. We still have moments where our childhood shadows creep in, where she gets defensive and I go cold. But something has changed. Now, we stay. We fight through, not against. And we don't run. One night, a few weeks after our dinner, we found ourselves in her living room with a bottle of wine and a playlist from our teenage years. She turned to me and said, "You know what really broke me? It wasn't that you were the judge. It was realizing I judged you so harshly because I was afraid of being seen as you." That hit like a punch to the chest. Not out of offense, but because I understood it. "We were raised to believe struggle was shameful," I told her. "But maybe struggle was just real life, and we were the only ones living it." Then she said something I didn't expect. "You remember when Dad left?" I nodded. That night was carved into my memory with acid. "Well, Mom told me it was your fault." I froze. "She said you yelled at him, that you pushed him over the edge, that if you'd kept your mouth shut, maybe he wouldn't have walked out." I felt the air leave my lungs. "She said that?" I whispered. Rachel nodded. I believed it, for years, until I grew up and realized how wrong she was. There it was, the final puzzle piece, the unspoken root of our split. It wasn't just rivalry or status or Instagram-worthy photos. It was a lie, a seed planted by someone who never learned how to nurture connection without control. Our mom had tried to make love conditional, polished, pretty, PR ready, but it was never real. So Rachel copied it, and I rejected it. And we both lost each other in the process, until life, in its divine, poetic irony, placed me on that wedding roster with a signature pen in hand. So here's the truth. If you're still watching, you will have family who tries to erase you. You will be left out, laughed at, uninvited, and unseen. But if you stay rooted in who you are, if you show up anyway, not for revenge, but for truth, you will find power again. Not the kind that comes from making people pay, the kind that comes from finally being free. Imagine being cut out of your own family for not being enough. Then imagine being the only person who could sign off on their perfect day. Would you have shown up? Would you have walked away? Drop it in the comments. What would you have done in my shoes? Rachel and I are rebuilding. No social media love bombs, no photo ops, just presence. We started going to therapy, both together and separately. Sometimes we revisit our old favorite diner, the one we used to sneak off to after school. She orders waffles. I order the same grilled cheese I always have. Last time we went, she brought a tiny box and placed it on the table. Inside, a silver bracelet engraved with 1010, found again. And just when I thought the story was done, there was one last twist. 2 weeks ago, our mother called me. She hadn't called in nearly 5 years. Her voice was dry, cautious. "I saw the wedding photos," she said. "Didn't expect to see you there." I didn't say anything. Then she surprised me. You did a good job. Maybe better than I would have. Pause. Anyway, your father wants to talk. Wait, Dad? I haven't heard from my father since I was 15. I don't know what he wants. But I do know this. I'm not that scared, silenced kid anymore. I'm not a burden. I'm not an embarrassment. I am a judge, a woman, a survivor, and most importantly, I am not defined by the people who left, but by how I kept showing up. Comment below, what's your 10-10 moment? Have you ever reconnected with someone after years of silence? Like this video if it made you feel something. That helps us reach more people going through silent battles like this. Subscribe for more real stories about power, redemption, family, and the moments that change everything. And most of all, share this with someone who's been cut off. Someone who needs to remember you are not too messy, you are not too late, you are not too far gone. You might just be the signature someone else has been waiting for. Final mic drop line. They cut me out of the family photo, but I became the one who signed the frame.